Hello and welcome to our webinar, Power to the Pupil, using eBooks to maximise your students' progress. Before we start, some quick housekeeping. If you have any issues with connectivity, please try leaving the webinar and rejoining. If you have any issues during this webinar, please email support@jcsonlineresources.org. I'd like to take a quick moment to introduce JCS Online Resources to those of you who aren't aware of us. We are a subscription agency for online educational resources. In this increasingly complex and challenging digital world, we believe the need for digital resources from trusted sources is more essential than ever. We pride ourselves on the quality academic resources in our catalogue and are proud to offer support for encouraging usage of resources and that which facilitates the teaching of digital media and information literacy. Today, we are joined by Kai Gardner, who I'll hand over to in just a second. Kai joins us from Infobase, where he helps schools, universities, and public libraries create engaging learning experiences through thoughtful use of digital education resources. There will be some time for questions at the end, but please feel free to leave any questions in the chat box throughout the session, and we will answer them during the Q&A. I hope you enjoy, and I'll hand over to Kai now.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for joining us today. This is being recorded, so if you have colleagues who aren't able to attend today, it will be shared out afterwards and you can reference it moving forward. We have a lot to cover. I know we have a short period of time, so we're going to go ahead and jump right in here. Today, we're going to spend some time discussing eBooks. I am a former teacher. These days I work for Infobase, which is a education publishing and education technology company, and we work closely with JCS. As mentioned in the introduction, I work to support all of our clients. We work with schools, universities, public libraries, and in a wide range of settings. But before that, I was a teacher, and today I want to spend some time talking about a resource that I wish I had utilized more when I was in the classroom, which is eBooks. We're going to spend some time discussing some of the general benefits of why you should consider using eBooks, why they're sometimes sort of an overlooked resource. We're going to spend some time discussing a few different types of eBook resources, such as reference texts, subject-specific texts, as well as literature. And then we're going to save some time for questions at the end. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. So a few things that I want to note, from the outset in terms of why you should consider using eBooks for instruction, why they're helpful for use in the classroom. One of the big benefits is that eBooks are quite accessible. They're convenient. Obviously, they're portable. In most cases, they're downloadable, so they could be accessed on an e-reader, such as a Kindle, or printed. One of the big benefits that I think is often overlooked is that they allow for simultaneous access in many cases. So there's some clear benefits for that. I remember instances when I was running activities in my classroom and we had a limited number of texts. That can get complicated, and it's really excellent when you could have all of your students accessing the same resource at the same time, be in different parts of the resource, in different chapters of an ebook without any issues. And then they also provide, access for offline use as well. In addition to being accessible, ebooks can also be quite engaging for students. Ebooks provide a lot of interactive features typically, such as searchability features, in many cases text-to-speech features. There's often translation features built in, other interactive features like note-taking, highlighting that make studying and researching a bit easier. And all of this goes to support multiple learning styles. So I know that, using physical text in the classroom, some students, might not find that as engaging as multimedia resources. Well, having some of these interactive features built into ebooks can support those students and make that process a little bit more engaging and exciting. And lastly, this might be an obvious one, but again, sometimes overlooked, ebooks are generally quite a bit cheaper than print books. And one of the clear benefits of that is that it is easier to quickly build a large and varied collection. At the end of this session, we're going to spend some time looking at a few ebook digital resources. And if you subscribe to a resource like that, you already get a huge collection that's included, and then you can kind of add based on specific resource needs. So that's one of the clear benefits of ebooks. Is it's easier to gain access to a wide range of texts quickly, as well as some of those other features we mentioned before, such as being engaging and accessible. So those are some of the general benefits. But now I want to spend some time talking about a few different categories of ebooks, and we're going to look at some examples during this session as well. So one of the key categories of ebooks that I think is very useful for use in the classroom are reference texts. So some examples, this would be encyclopedias, almanacs, glossaries, as well as other resources such as pro and con articles. Why are reference texts useful? Well, they help students build background knowledge. Often they can be an excellent starting point for research. And I think most importantly, these are an academic alternative to students just jumping on Google or using Wikipedia or YouTube or any other resource to try to find information as a starting point to research. And when I say academic alternative, what do I mean exactly? Well, reference texts, unlike anything you can just find on the internet, these are resources that have been vetted by, they're published by reputable authors. They've gone through an editorial process. And so you know that the information that you're getting out of these resources is reputable, verifiable, and most importantly, cleared for educational use as well. So we're going to spend some time in this session looking at some examples of what this looks like in practice. Additionally, another useful resource, another category of ebooks would be subject-specific resources. It's sort of a broad category, but this is what I'm calling it for the purposes of this session. So I would think of these as supplementary texts. Again, these, like reference texts, these can be used to build background knowledge, but they can also really help students gain some insight on a specific topic. These types of resources can support research in a very wide range of subjects, such as history, science, politics, geography, economics, and more. Really, kind of any discipline can be supported by these types of ebooks. One category here that I think is often overlooked would be biographies. And there are many great, ebook biographies that are available, and I'll show you some examples today as well. But this is an excellent resource for research projects, especially anything historical, learning about getting a better understanding of key historical figures. This can be used even in science projects as well, learning about scientists who made specific breakthroughs. That's really just a starting point, but I think this is a resource that can really be integrated in a lot of useful ways. And another thing I want to point out here is that these, ebooks are available for a wide range of readers and grade levels. So there are many, dedicated resources that are specifically for younger readers, that are at a Lexile level that works for younger students. And I'll show you some examples of that as well today. And lastly, literature, which is, I think what many people think of when they think of ebooks. In this case, we're talking about, full text works of literature, but also literary criticism, which is really useful for studying, works of literature, understanding what have others said about certain texts, about authors, about the themes, and so on. Studying literature is really important for promoting critical thinking, empathy, imagination, can help students gain exposure to other cultures that they may not be familiar with. Additionally, literary text can be paired with reference resources, like I mentioned before, such as encyclopedias, as part of broader research projects. And I think it's also important, to note, I mentioned before, sometimes students, might not feel engaged when using, actual text, but there's a lot of great opportunities to pair literature with other multimedia resources, and all of this serves to increase student engagement. So those are some general benefits of using ebooks. Here are a few of the categories: reference text, subject-specific resources, and literature. And next, we're actually going to jump into a few of the Infobase resources that I want to show you that use some of these different types of text. So we have one platform that I'm going to show you that's called Credo Source. This is really all about reference text, starting point for research. We also have a dedicated ebook platform with thousands of ebook titles on a wide range of subjects. So I'm going to show you some examples of some of those subject-specific texts that I mentioned as well. And lastly, we also have a literature database called Bloom's Literature that is geared towards literature and analysis. It includes full text works as well as literary analysis of some of the greatest authors and their works. So I'm going to quickly stop sharing and reshare my screen. So we can jump in and take a look at some of these resources and see these ebooks in action. Great. So the first one that I want to show you is Credo Source. So as I mentioned, this is a good example of using reference text in instruction. So Credo Source, we like to say, is really the academic alternative to Wikipedia. It's a research starting point. And the backbone of everything in this platform are those types of reference texts that I mentioned, such as encyclopedias, almanacs, glossaries, and so on. So there's a lot of different ways to jump in here, but primarily a student, would come in and they run a search on a specific topic, or they could browse as well. But like I mentioned, where's all this information coming from? It's coming from reference texts. And I want to show you some examples of what this looks like. So, in this case, we have over 1,000 reference texts included in this platform that really make this like an excellent alternative to just using Google or using Wikipedia because you're getting verified, reputable information. The types of texts that are included here, some of these sort of, summaries of key themes in different disciplines, such as architecture or fashion. We can also filter here to see some other examples. If we look, for example, at food, drink, and nutrition, we're going to see some texts here that have a wide range of information on nutrition and food. Here's a whole text on the avocado. So all sorts of information that can be fun to dive into. And I click in here and you can see, for example, all the publishing information, but here we have the full text, table of contents. We have the articles that are, linked here within the text that are accessible. We also have images. In this case, this particular title doesn't have images, but many of the titles on this platform do have images. So when I talk about using reference text, I think the goal here is to steer students towards using a resource like this or other comparable resources, as opposed to just running a search on Google, where it's easy to get overwhelmed to find information that isn't actually accurate or reliable, and that can make the research process feel more complicated and more daunting for students. So to show an example of why this can be helpful, if I run a search here for climate change, just as one example, I'm going to get a lot of useful information that can be really helpful to a student who's just starting the research process. First, I'm going to get an overview of, what is this term? What is the concept here? If someone's not familiar with it, as you can see, this is pulled from an encyclopedia. I'm also getting a visual map of all of the different related terms. I think sometimes students can struggle to see those connections when they get started with research, especially, as I mentioned, if they're just kind of jumping into everything that the internet offers. It can feel really overwhelming. This makes it a bit easier to get situated and to have some guidance with the research process. And we also have here, all of these different articles. Again, these are pulled from reference text like an encyclopedia, a pro-con article that's discussing differing viewpoints on this subject. We also have images here. This is really important. I think sometimes this gets overlooked, but a lot of the images that are available just through Google Images, for example, may not be cleared for educational use. When you're using a resource like this, all of the images here are definitely geared for that usage and can be integrated into projects. So that's one other thing to be aware of. And then also integrations with other resources that make the searching process easy. This could link to other library resources. So this way students don't have to get lost on the internet, on all the different going down rabbit holes and looking at different results. They have everything in one place and it's easily accessible. And then this is also a dynamic feature as well. So you can see that, if I clicked on greenhouse gas here, I'm getting an updated search result. And again, this is all just to serve the student in having a seamless research experience. So this is not intended to be a full platform demo, and we're going to quickly transition here, but just wanted to use this as one example of why these reference texts like encyclopedias and almanacs, which I think sometimes are overlooked and sometimes thought of as kind of older resources that aren't as useful now. I think that this is a great example of how these resources are super useful for research, especially for early researchers, students who are still learning the research process. And the last thing I just want to point out here as well is, We do have videos included as well, and I think students sometimes struggle with understanding how to, for example, narrow their topic or run effective searches. And so, yeah, value of having a resource like this or other comparable resources that you get some of that content included. Next, I am going to switch over to take a look at the ebook platform that Infobase offers. So this is a good example of those subject-specific texts that I mentioned. So texts that may not fall into that reference category, such as like a dictionary or encyclopedia, but are geared to specific subjects and are very useful for projects and as well as writing assignments as well. So here we have an example of just some of the different types of texts that are featured for this month. As you can see, this is a really wide range of topics here, from deserts to economic issues to a profile on author and more. But when I come down here, I can see all of these different subjects and the different title counts that fall within this. So we have economy, geography, some of the literature that we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes here, medicine, mythology, really just about anything you can think of. And the value of having access through a platform like this is that you have everything in one place, and it's easy to quickly navigate when someone's doing a research project to be able to find the information that they may need. So, for example, when I click in here into the ancient history section, you're going to see we have a lot of texts on some of, for example, in this case, some of the ancient civilizations, as well as other specific topics as well. But specific historical events that are significant, Greek and Roman mythology, and so on. So to show you some of this in action, as I mentioned before, one of the great things about eBooks is that they have a lot of these interactive features built in. And just want to give you an example of what that looks like in practice. Just taking just a moment here to pull up, but so here we have the full text of this book. What's great about this, though, is, as I mentioned, it's really easy to navigate, quickly jump through. We know that sometimes when someone's doing research, they're only going to want to use specific sections of a text, and it's really easy to navigate through this when you have an ebook reader, ebook platform like this. So, for example, here I have the table of contents, can quickly glance through the chapters. These are all interactive links. So if I click on any of these, I'm going to be brought to the specific section in the book that addresses this. And then, another thing is that a lot of educational texts come with support materials as well. In this case, a glossary of terms, a chronology of events, additional resources, and it's easy to access that here as well. So, if we page through here, we're going to see the different, chapters as we progress through the book with the text, the images, and full text access as well. Another thing that's really nice is that, this can be expanded, fill the screen. There is a text-to-speech feature. And then I mentioned that searchability. So this is one of the things that's really useful with eBooks. If I look, for example, in this case, I'm curious about trade among in the ancient Incan Empire. In this case, right, I run a keyword search. I can see this pop up in a lot of different places. And if I click, it's dynamic. I can automatically navigate to the specific section of this text that discusses that particular topic and that particular keyword. So this is something that's really useful as well. Some other beneficial features that are included with many ebooks is, the ability in this case to have a citation generator. It's really important that students cite their work properly, and there's a way to do that with the citation generator. It can also be exported to citation management tools. There's also a way to view this book against educational standards. So you can see what specific educational standards. We have a wide variety, in this particular case, loaded into this database of global educational standards. And so you can map that against maybe the standards that you're being asked to teach, and to be able to understand exactly, where this might fit into the curriculum. can obviously view the title information. There's also a dictionary built in. So, if a student were to come across unfamiliar terms, they have a way of easily, looking that up and getting a definition. And then also the ability to print selected chapters to be able to, save this, access at a later date. We do also have a search by standards feature. So, you can view within the ebook, but also run a search actually for specific educational standards. And we know that's important as teachers are, increasingly being asked to address specific standards within the curriculum. I also mentioned that biographies can be quite useful. So, in this case, on a platform like this, we have over 1,000 biographies here, and as I mentioned before, this is, I think, sometimes an overlooked resource, but really beneficial for research projects on a wide range of subjects, whether that's learning about historical figures or contemporary figures who might play a role in politics, global affairs. So, as we in this particular case, we update this on a regular basis to feature different biographies, but I can take a look here. We have a lot of different categories. If we look at world history, we're going to see a lot of different global leaders. These are recent texts that cover these people's lives, as well as some of the key events that they've been involved in. And so, again, just something else to keep in mind, that these biographies can be quite a useful resource, and it's a type of ebook that sometimes it's overlooked. And lastly, I mentioned as well that ebooks, just like any text, can be geared towards different reading levels. In many cases, there's collections of ebooks that are specifically for younger readers. So these are texts that are going to be at a Lexile level that work for younger students. And again, a wider variety of subjects here on science, history, and so on. So this is an example of different types of ebooks, as well as some of those interactive features that I mentioned before. And lastly, I wanted to show you an example of literature and how to integrate this with using ebooks. So in this case, Infobase offers a dedicated literature database called Bloom's Literature. And this includes not just full text works of literary classics, but also useful curriculum tools to help students understand how to write about authors, how to think about themes in classic works, and more. So I want to show you just a few examples here to give you a sense of how this can be useful. But one of the first things is, I mentioned that a database like this has full text literary classics included. So, we have over 1,000 classic texts here that are full text resources. For example, if I were to click into something like a Christmas Carol, this is actually going to open up on that other ebook platform that we're just looking at, with all of that searchability, the ability to do the text to speech and more. So this is great. I think that getting some of those interactive features with some of these classic literary works can be quite useful. But a resource like this also has a lot of other useful features to help teach literature and help students think about literature. For example, if we were to take a look at some of the most featured authors or most studied authors here, if we look at Walt Whitman, for example, we have, a biography here. We have reference resources about his life and about his work. We also have literary criticism, which I mentioned is another useful thing to think about in the classroom. How have scholars thought about his work and analyzed it over time? So here we have a lot of useful resources there. We also have guides on all of these literary works. In many cases, these are poems that have full text access as well as overviews here of, what are the key themes in these works. In many cases, we also have images included, as well as videos. So this might be examples of authors talking about other authors. In some cases, this could be, dramatic interpretations of classic works. So the idea here is, not just these standalone literary ebooks, but a wide range of other resources as well that can complement them. I mentioned, before that it can be helpful to use some of these resources with multimedia as well, and that's where these types of videos, whether it's dramatic productions of classic works, or some of these other types of videos can be really useful to kind of bring some of this to life. Another thing just to point out quickly as we kind of go to wrap up the session, but a real value of having a standalone resource like this as opposed to just individual ebooks is that you get all of these other sort of curriculum tools as well. In this case, right, we have really, overviews on some of the key topics that are useful across the board, whether that's, citing sources, understanding plagiarism for students. We have guides here on how to effectively and ethically use AI and what are some of the risks of using AI. We know that this is a key topic that educators around the world are dealing with right now. So we have those resources here, and we also have some resources, like I mentioned, how do you pair literary works with film? We have a guide on how to do that exactly. Essay topics, key themes, and how they're implemented and how they've been how they show up in key works. So again, I think the value here is not just the ebooks in themselves, but some of the complementary resources that go along with it. So I know that was a lot of information in a short period of time. Wanted to save a couple of minutes at the end of this session for any questions or concerns anyone may have. I'm going to quickly stop sharing my screen, but I hope that this has been helpful in understanding some of the benefits of using ebooks, as well as some of the key categories of ebooks and what that looks like in an educational database like the ones I showed you.